Hi everyone, welcome to today's episode of the Do Go podcast, where we'll be exploring the healing power of Qigong. I'm your host, Rob Watson, and today we're joined by Qigong teacher Lou Walker, who will share insights into this ancient practice that connects body, mind, and spirit. Whether you're new to Qigong or looking to deepen your practice, this episode will guide you towards greater balance and vitality. So let's dive in. Firstly, Lou, I just want to say I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me today. I'm really fascinated about Qigong and particularly fascinated about yourself and how you got into your journey. So, yeah, first of all, thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So, like with all guests who I've not spoken to before on the show, I just like to start by getting a little bit of your sharing a bit of your own journey into sort of Qigong. How did you first get involved with it? Often, most of us have our own healing journey or certain points in our life which could say our hero's journey in many ways that leads us to this. So yeah, if you could just give a bit of a background, that'd be great.
Yeah, so it's actually quite a long story. Well, not too long, but again, it came about from I burnt out. So back in 2022, I sort of had a really serious burnout, and at the time, I didn't realize that it was a serious burnout. But it was more than just I needed 3 weeks off, to kind of go away on holiday, come back. So I started on this huge journey. So what happened was I was working at my corporate job, and the last few years before that had been quite stressful with the pandemic. I'd lost my job in the pandemic, and then I'd been picking up work again. And in 2022, early 2022, I started to feel really ill, and I couldn't quite work out what it was to start with. But I was like, I just don't feel great, and I went to the doctors, I went to the GP, and I was trying to explain all my symptoms, and they really didn't know much about it. So they gave me some blood tests and they just sort of sent me away and they said, well, we'll see what comes back. And I got to the point where I really felt so poorly, I ended up leaving work. So work said, look, just go off, have some time off, however long that takes. They were actually really, really kind. And they said, if it takes a month or two, that's fine. Just go and sort of look after yourself. So I did. And I started to sort of Google my symptoms because I was just like, this doesn't feel right. And the doctors really didn't very helpful. My bloods came back fine. They were like, yeah, everything's fine. We don't really know what's wrong with you. And so, like a lot of people, I was like, all right, I need to figure this out. I felt terrible. My symptoms were kind of like my nervous system was all over the place. So I'd be sat still, but like I'd be getting these huge surges of adrenaline for no reason. I felt sick all the time. I wasn't hungry. Like I would be shaking. Every time I left the house, everything felt so overwhelming. So I had to just sort of stay in the house. I was lay on the floor a lot of the time, just kind of like hugging myself to soothe. So yeah, and I would have moments where I felt so ill, I actually got quite scared. I was like, I don't actually know what's going on. So I kept saying to my husband, like, you need to take me to hospital. Like, I'm really quite scared and fearful now. So it didn't ever end up coming to that point, but I started to Google and it started to come up about burnout. And I started to listen to a few podcasts actually while I was lay on my sofa feeling awful. And I found this podcast about burnout, and it's run by a lady in the States. And everything that I was listening to was like, wow, this is me. This is what's happening to me. And so I joined her support group. So she's got a really big support group on Facebook. And I joined this support group and I started to write about how I was feeling. And people started to say, yeah, this sounds like burnout. So yeah, so that's how it started. And there was lots of other things going on in my life as well, like not just work, but work was the main catalyst, I would say. Corporate job, very, high stress. But yeah, I had other few things going on as well. So yeah, so then this is when I started to think, right, well, if the doctors aren't going to help me because they weren't dismissive, they actually sat and listened to me a lot, but the nurse was basically like, I think you just need some time off. It sounds like you're just stressed. So I was like, right, well, what can I do? So I had a couple of months off, and then naively, I was like, right, I'm going back to work again. I'm starting to feel better now because I'd had a lot of rest and my nervous system had slowly started to kind of come back down again. It wasn't so up and down. And in the reality, anyone who burns out so severely like I did, you don't recover in a few months. It takes years, and it's been 3 years nearly now. And I would say I'm finally back to kind of not, you're never back to how you were. Your life has to change forever, I would say. And I think anyone who suffers with any serious illness, your life does change. So yeah, sorry, where was I? Yeah, so anyway, while I was off, I was down my allotment and I was sat there in the sunshine, just trying to calm myself. And one of the ladies next to me, she said, "You don't seem yourself, are you okay?" And we had a long chat. She said, have you tried a Chinese doctor? She said, they are really helpful if you're not getting anywhere, with your GP. So I booked in for acupuncture with a lady, Chinese lady in Manchester, and I went to her and she did a big consultation with me for a good half an hour. And she was the one that said, "You're burnt out. This is burnout. I can help you." And I think at that point, she was the only person that said to me, "Yes, this is what's going on," and it sort of yeah, clarified it for me what I thought anyway. So I had weekly acupuncture with her. Bearing in mind, like my husband had to drive me to every appointment because I couldn't even drive at this point. I was so like really ill, like everything was kind of just overwhelming, so I couldn't, concentrate very well. So she slowly brought me back to life. I'd say I had about 6 sessions with her. And I was like, oh, wow, like the energy started to shift. And I was like, okay, I'm starting to feel better. And then from there, I then started practicing Qigong online, a bit like yourself. And yeah, I started to practice it and it slowly started to make me feel so much better between that and the acupuncture. Yeah, I just started to feel a lot better again. However, in the meantime, it's been like such a long journey over 3 years with the burnout. So I started to do Qigong and I went back to work. I was back for like about a month and then I just knew I couldn't stay. I wasn't fully better. It started to come back again, just sort of being there, even though they didn't put too much pressure on me to take on lots of work. It was just like, no, I just can't do this. So I handed my notice in and then I started freelancing a little bit because I had freelanced before. And I actually rebound, I had two other burnouts after that, but they weren't quite as bad as the first one. So I'd say, yeah, it's taken a couple of years to really get myself back into balance. And Qigong has been the main thing that's got me there.
Well, it's really it's great to hear that backstory because we've often it takes certain things, doesn't it, to um, shift us and push us down a different path. Because you could have just, well, it doesn't seem like you could have continued, but sometimes many people just continue doing something that isn't working for them, really struggling, but don't know how to change or what to change. And often the challenge that we have is with Western medicine, we go there. And like you said, blood tests are fine. You just seem like you need a bit of a rest. We get 15 minutes with them at best. They're seeing 30 to 40 people in a day. The GP, so it's general practitioners. So, we're not seeing a specialist. And obviously, in the end, you've had to go down your own route. Interestingly, I had a Chinese herbal medicine. I've just spoken to someone on my podcast actually about that. Again, similar route. But it's really interesting to hear that journey that you've gone on. So, so with Qigong, obviously, I spoke before we got going about the benefits I've found from it as well. But it'd be really get understanding from people to know, like, because all we've mentioned about is Qigong, we've not really said what it is. So, can you describe like the fundamental principles of Qigong? What someone who's never heard it before, because, for instance, yoga, everyone knows about yoga. There's a class on every high street, pretty much, but Qigong, not so much. I came across it about 10 years ago briefly, did a few classes in America, um, and I've heard quite a few people talk about the benefits of it. But yeah, if you can just explain a little bit more about it, that'd be brilliant.
Yeah, yeah. So obviously it's linked to traditional Chinese medicine. So like it's a self-healing pillar. So in traditional Chinese medicine, there's like self-healing pillars, and acupuncture is the one, um, Chinese herbs, and Qigong. So that's how I ended up getting into it really was because I went for the acupuncture and it's all about energy. So then I kind of linked through to Qigong as well. So we kind of in Qigong, it is similar to yoga in ways. Like Yoga is kind of the Indian culture. So Qigong is the Chinese sort of culture. So it's basically we use the mind, the body, and the breath to encourage energy flow through the body. So traditional Chinese medicine, it's all about healthy qi, which is like the energy flowing through our body, flowing through our organs, flowing through our tissues and our cells in our body. So their philosophy is if you keep that healthy flow of energy, you would generally have a healthy body. So yeah, so that's kind of like I'd say like the basic level of what Qigong is. We use the difference between I noticed between Qigong and yoga, because I have practiced yoga for many years, is we work from the inside out. So it's all about how it feels in the body rather than what it looks like. So we do movements and they're more kind of flowy, I guess, than say a yoga class would be. But we really focus on how we feel inside. So we use our mind to really focus and tune into the body. So it's really somatic. It's a really somatic practice, which is a word that gets used a lot now. So you don't really need to worry about what it looks like. It's how it feels, and if it's feeling good, then that's all that matters. So it's a really powerful mind practice along with the body, and we do a lot of breath work as well. So yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting you say, isn't it, about the bigger benefit I feel is that flow in movement from it. Where in yoga, you often, you need to be holding poses much more. What I really like about it as well compared to yoga, I feel like the absolute core of yoga is incredible, but I feel like maybe the way it's gone in the West, in some ways, a lot of egos attached to it. Like look at the poses I can do and look at the strength I am. With Qigong, you don't really see that as much, and I like that side of it as well because it kind of takes the ego element of it, which almost can make you then stay in the head, and it becomes something you're not. It's not. Its core principles are maybe not coming through. Um, so let's talk about chi a little bit more because you know, e- which is energy, which is basically what we're all just made up of. How can someone? I notice sometimes people will say, "Don't worry if you can't feel it" as well to start off with. If you could just talk a little bit about that, and how someone might even begin to feel and connect with their own sort of like life force.
Yeah, no, and when I first started, I don't think I did really feel my energy. I think I did the practices. But then I just noticed that I started to feel different, like I started to feel like I had more energy. And so at the first, when you start to practice, you don't always really notice the energy. It does take a long time. But I think even just starting that practice is a good thing. So yeah, so the chi is basically our life force. Like nothing would exist if energy didn't exist. So like everything is made up of energy. So it's really important for us to keep a healthy flow of energy through our body because it can kind of get stuck. And if energy gets stuck in our body, it can cause like disease, it can cause pain, like discomfort. And so keeping that healthy flow of qi through the body really just kind of keeps us feeling good, just keeps the organs healthy as well. Like in Qigong, we really focus a lot on the organs, same in Chinese medicine, healthy organs, healthy body, really. So we do a lot of work through the meridian lines. So the meridian lines are energetic channels through the body, and that you use those in acupuncture as well. So they would put the pins into you along your energy lines. So we work with those in Qigong as well. So we do a lot of movements that massage those energy lines. And so as we're massaging those energy lines, we're moving the energy through the body and clearing out any blockages maybe. And blockages can come from like emotions that we've not like processed and moved through. They can come from anything that really happens to us that can kind of get stuck. And so as we move the energy, yeah, we can shift a lot of emotion as well. So yeah, it's really beneficial. And like I say, if you don't feel the energy at first, that's okay. But we do use a lot of our mind in our practice. So while we're doing the movements, a lot of the movements are quite simple. So we can really like do the mind-body connection because I think a lot of us are very disconnected from, we're all up in our mind, but we're very disconnected from the body. So it's really good practice to bring the two together. Yeah, so I would say that's the main thing with Chi.
Yeah. Well, I know from my experience from practicing it, which I said to you before, I've been doing it for about over a year or so. It's just it's just like the benefit. And I've done a lot of things in the past, meditation, yoga, all sorts of, but for me, this seems to be, and I think because you would use the word somatic experience, somatic it before, which has become a much more of a buzzword recently with like so Peter Levine, who's brought the somatic experience, like the benefits of, and at its core, it's just bringing us back to ourselves. That's what it feels to me, bringing me back to ourselves, bringing us back to our roots. I feel like I've mentioned this many times in this podcast feel like the past few hundred years, maybe even longer, we've gone so far away from what it feels like to be human in many ways, the way we live, and it's just accelerating with technology. We've lost our connection to nature and we've lost our connection to ourselves. And I think Qigong is an incredible practice that helps us bring us back to ourselves. Um,
Yeah.
and I've
That
started, particularly when the weather's better, I go out and do it in the garden, go face the sun. I'm barefooted on the grass, and I'm like, this is just amazing. I'm getting the sunlight, I'm grounding, I'm doing qigong, and there's never been a time when I've done it when I've not felt the benefits from doing it. And if I miss a day, that's a tricky thing as well. I do believe of it as well. It's not something you can just do a few sessions of, or whatever. It's something that I believe it needs to become a daily practice. Um, what are your thoughts on that in terms of making it sort of a almost a ritual for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, the good thing with Qigong is that even if you don't have much time, so like, I practice every day, but sometimes that is only 5, 10 minutes. So there's lots of things we do in Qigong, a simple shake, like you were talking about shaking before. So even if, you've had a busy day, you haven't really had much time to do a full sequence practice. Even if you just go out and shake, you shake your body, we shake off a lot of stress, like animals would in the wild. So there's a lot of shaking that we can do. There's a lot of practices in Qigong we can do in 5 or 10 minutes, even just connecting to your breath. We do a lot of breath work in Qigong. So kind of similar to yoga. So just connecting to your breath. We connect to like our dantian. So we call our dantian is like we have three dantians, but our main one is just below our belly button. And that is like where our main source of energy is. And so even just doing a mindful practice connecting back to that point really helps you just bring you back into your body again. If you've been busy in your mind working all day, you can do really simple practices with Qigong that don't take too long. But obviously it's great if you can do a longer practice. But yeah, I feel like with yoga, it feels like there aren't as many smaller things like that that you can do. Whereas with Qigong, there are these like small little things that you can do just even throughout your day, and I do them all the time just to kind of, if I lose myself a bit into my head, I'm like, right, I just need to connect back to my energy center and just almost reset. So, we have a concept called Wuji where we reset back to like, yeah, like not our original center, but like kind of just resetting the body again. So if things have happened to you, like for instance, I had something happen to me yesterday that threw me off a bit and I was a bit stressed about it. And I was like, okay, I just come in, I did some practices to settle my energy, and I just sort of reset and almost needed to discharge the thing that had happened to me. So I think a lot of what's happened is to people, and this happened to me, is things get stuck in your system. To say someone says something and it upsets you, it can get kind of stuck. So it's great to just get rid of it as soon as you can. And there are lots of practices we can do in Qigong to do that. So.
Yeah. How do you don't necessarily see many many people to be able to many classes to go to, sort of where we are at the much. I wouldn't. Most stuff seems to be online, and maybe there's an element because of COVID. There's not a lot of things out, and things have been pushed online. But is it something that I've only really done it as individually, and I've seen the massive benefits. But I'd love to do it more in group practice. And is more of that popping up? Is it encouraged? Is there more benefits from doing it in a group? Is there like greater coherence between people, or is it more of an individual journey for people?
Yeah, no, it's definitely great to do it in person. I mean, I am doing a few classes at the minute in person. If you practice in a group, you obviously have the group energy, so that is really nice when you really feed off everyone else's energy. So the practice in person with other people, it really, really brings like a much stronger, well, it can bring a much stronger energy, which is great. And then you can all feed off each other's energy. So it's great to practice on your own, but yeah, I think in person is always better than online if possible. And like you were saying about practicing outside, so in Qigong, everything is related back to nature. So we are nature, and what we see is patterns from nature and like the world and the solar system mimicked in our bodies. And so we do a lot of theory around kind of if we can practice outside, it is a really great thing to do because we're connecting back to nature. So yeah, I love that philosophy because I've always been very much an outdoors person. Like I love hiking, I love my allotment, I love to be outside. And I think when I found Qigong and I heard that, it's all a lot of it's related to nature, I was just like, this is definitely for me because that's just where I love to be. Yes, we do a lot of our movements are kind of based around nature. So we mimic like animals, we mimic weather, we mimic like all these kind of like rivers and oceans. And so all the theory or the probably a lot of the practices you're doing are actually based on nature. And so when you're practicing outside, that's great. So yeah, it'd be great. It's great to practice in a group outside as well.
I remember being in New York a few years ago and well, Tai Chi is quite popular as well, but I'd see people either doing Tai Chi and it does now from a memory like Qi Gong just in the park, as a group or just on their own. And it just always intrigued me. It's just especially living in a city, to get into the park. I think as much people can do that as possible. It's definitely a huge benefit. Um, how are you seeing more people turn to this, more interested in it? Obviously, because you naturally, when we become interested in something, we suddenly open the door to something and we see a whole new world of it. But are you seeing it? Are you seeing any sort of ripple effect? Are you seeing people is it growing and sort, or is it still very much a bit of a, it's on the edges?
Yeah, so we were talking about this before, I guess. I think it's hard. Like I'm not gonna lie, like I'm finding it hard to kind of get people interested in it. I'd say the people that are more interested in it are people that do maybe practice yoga or practice something that's similar. They're like, oh, this is interesting. A lot of people don't know what it is. I would love to see a lot more people teaching it. I would love to see a lot more in-person classes. But yeah, at the minute it's sort of getting people to come to the classes because they just don't know about it. So I am trying to kind of get people interested, and a lot of my fellow the people that I've trained with on the teacher training, they're also trying to get people, getting it into the community. But yeah, it's not as easy as saying, "Oh, I'm a yoga teacher," and people just come to the yoga classes. It's a bit harder to kind of get people to come and try it.
But like anything, once people do take that step into it and they see the benefits for it, then that's the thing that grows. And then it's a ripple effect, then, isn't it? It's just going to take time. And I also feel as well, the way we're living, like I mentioned before, is so disconnected, and things only feel like it's getting more challenging in many places in the world and in our homes and our lives. That even more people are going to be seeking practices like Qigong as well, because it, as you said, that element of it, it's very much inward. You're working with the body, it's bringing you back to yourself. You become much more attuned to yourself, and seeing what's out of alignment. And what I noticed as well, it's very empowering. Rather than feeling like I need to go to someone else to find out what's wrong with me, I can work and understand with myself, and you're doing the healing yourself. And it's truly transformational and empowering to do that, to know that we've got the power in ourselves to transform our health and we don't have to go outside so much. Of course, you went to see an acupuncturist, you went to see a Chinese herbal medicine, you got introduced to, there's all these things to access it. But at the end, it's us that brings ourselves back to it. It's not saying, here you go, here's a pill, here's a prescription, this is going to get you better. And in many ways, I do feel like often prescriptions or drugs will only can end up suppressing the energy even more in many ways, and something that will just pop out at other time. So yeah, I do think anything I've always talked about in this podcast, anything that we can do to encourage ourselves become better versions of ourselves, and when we become better versions of ourselves, we then naturally we want to become service to others, and helping others, which is what you're doing with it. So yeah, it's great to see what you're doing. It's great. I'm just really excited to speak to someone about it because it's just something that it's resonated with me so strongly. There's some huge benefits from it. The more people that can be interested in it, and if we can open this up to a few thousand more people by listening to this, or however, um, then it can only do some good.
Yeah, no, that's it. I mean, it's such a great practice, and like the difference I find from qigong to yoga is it's actually a self-healing modality. So it is part of like, the traditional Chinese medicine, healing pillars. So you do really notice like a healing benefit. And, we do really like we talk to our organs through our mind, to kind of heal things. So it is really like beneficial. There are so many health benefits from it. And there are some practitioners that do actually heal people through Qigong. There's a whole healing training course that you can do. But just by practicing this movement just really like gives you a healthy body. And I'd say like my teacher always says that you need your workouts. Yeah, you need to get your heart rate going, you need to do your physical workouts, but then there's also there's space for this in your life as well, because this kind of it calms the nervous system. It doesn't challenge the organs like a workout does. It's kind of like it's soothing them, but it's like healing at the same time. So yeah, it's really beneficial. I think going back to what you said before, like a lot of people are not in with their body. And so it is such a somatic practice. And one of the things that brought me back round to life after my burnouts, it's been somatic yoga as well. So really just going inwards, not worrying about so the yoga I do now, when I do practice yoga, is very somatic based. So there's some really great practitioners in Manchester that I go to that just we really just tune into the body rather than the asana, like what it looks like. And that for me is similar to Qigong as well. We really go into our body.
Mm.
Yeah.
So, as a teacher, then, how do you guide your students to sort of like potentially would deepen their practice over time? Because maybe this is a question that I'm asking from my perspective as well, because maybe I've just got into a bit of a routine. I do it online. I've got a few classes that I'll do, a few like 20 minutes here, 20 minutes there. What about yeah, go on that journey to deepen the practice? Because there'll be times when something will come up for me and Qigong hasn't been the answer. It's like I have to go deeper on some other elements of it. Obviously, I think it allows us, what it does is, I think I've noticed this, it ends up, it makes you feel better, but it also will bring stuff up. Like if stuff's out of alignment, emotional imbalances, childhood trauma, wherever, if that's been blocked in the system, it's not just going to like come up and go all beautifully because you've been doing Qigong. You almost have to purge those emotions and those bits and have an understanding of it. So yeah, how can it be deepened over time and any specific like techniques, or is there any stages of development that people will go on with it?
Yeah. So interesting you were saying that. I was talking to somebody else who's a Qigong teacher about this the other day. Yeah, lots of stuff can come up with Qigong, and it's just about really listening to your body and what you think. So the way you go deep is just to keep practicing and keep practicing and keep practicing. There are certain practices that we do in Qigong. One particularly is called Wuji, which is really about bringing up emotions and stuff, and really letting them go. But it's a practice that you have to continually keep doing. So I guess to say it's regular practice. If things come up and you just kind of feel like, whoa, like, this is a lot, it's just listening to your body and knowing, okay, maybe I don't need to practice as much the next day, like take it down a little bit. So yeah, I guess it is just listening to your body. But yeah, I don't think there's any quick kind of like there's not anything particular that you can do other than just kind of like calm yourself. There's lots of grounding techniques. So in a class, we start off by tuning into the energy as much as possible. We then work with the energy, so we then flow the energy through the body, and then towards the end of the class, we bring the energy back in, and we just soothe and settle ourselves. So I guess it's about having the tools to be able to soothe and settle yourself at the end. But in a class, we would show you how to do that. So there's always ways to kind of ground and come back. And things might come up, but then I guess you might clear them the next time and the next time. So yeah, it is regular practice.
Mm, yeah, definitely. One thing that I'm always interested in talking about on this podcast when it's possible is to talk about kids and children's development. And I've got two young girls, and even before I had girls, I've always been very sort of conscious about how we're raising children today and the world that they're growing up in. And you're seeing all sorts of mental health disorders that are popping up. Pandemic certainly accelerated all those things, social media, smartphones. all those things. It was even the case anyway before that, but those things are just like accelerating it. And I just imagine how incredible the benefits of Qigong would be for children. So if we can turn into that for a little bit and just get your yeah, get your insight on that and what you think the benefits for kids and how we can get it to more children.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it would be great. Like, I don't know anyone actually. Well, I do actually. I know somebody who's teaching in a school at the minute, which is great. So she works in a school and she is actually teaching the students each week. Um,
Is she like a teacher, as a normal
no,
school teacher as
yeah, no,
well? Yeah.
yeah. I personally haven't had any kind of. I've not sort of, I've not been teaching any children, but I know she does, and she's saying they're enjoying it. She lets them kind of come to her, so she advertises the class, and it's up to them if they want to come and try it. It's not like a we all have to do this. But I think it would be great for children, like I really do. The thing with Qigong is it is really accessible for everyone, and a lot of them, I guess some people kind of relate it to like it's an older person practice, because they see a lot of older people in the park, like moving. Maybe they're doing Tai Chi, but obviously Qigong is linked to Tai Chi. So I think it's good for older people because you get to kind of move that energy, but they get to move their body still, but it's not in like a really strenuous way. So I guess it would be the same for children, really, just to start them off slowly. But I can imagine the benefits would be great, really. I think anything where we can just get people to like really tune into their bodies at an early age rather than be stuck in the head is going to be a good thing, isn't it, really?
Yeah, 100%. And also, you think about naturally, I think in young kids, like for instance, my daughter who's 4, you look at the way she bounces around and every day, and she's on the trampoline and she's doing so. She doesn't need it at the moment because
No.
she's in a natural rhythm. She's just doing all the things, and eventually she'll start doing cartwheels, and and you can see that's how kids are. But I think the issue is when you start just putting a kid in a classroom and saying, sit still here for 6 hours a day, when doesn't seem very natural for kids to, and that's when I think a lot of things like, a lot of the kids who are suffering with ADHD and other things, it's like, it almost feels like it's the environment that's wrong. Not that the kid, not necessarily the kids, it's the environment that we need to change. And I feel like if there was a way of introducing this into schools, if it was even, the dream would be it's on the curriculum, it's encouraged, it's done for 10 minutes a day. There is a school that we looked at for our daughter. It's just a bit too far away for us, and that's it's a transcendental meditation primary school that we looked at, and they practice like they're not given a full meditation, but they're given like a word of wisdom, and they do this word of wisdom so that like they're centering themselves, bringing themselves back to each other every day. So the way of introducing this in some way would be, I could only imagine, be like huge benefits to kids. And I know in the past, like with transcendental meditation, I've seen the benefits, particularly through the David Lynch Foundation, when they've gone into schools in America and the transformation that impacts it's had on kids, particularly in areas which are really struggling with maybe knife crime. There's all sorts of elements of crime. There's broken homes, kids that, and it just anything we can do to help kids to give them, as you mentioned before, a toolkit, to give them a toolkit so they know that if they're out of whack or wherever, they know there's something that they can do to bring themselves back. It's not going to be, well, I need to just distract myself on social media. I need to just end up going down paths of taking drugs, anything just to numb the system because life can be so tough. Like, it's tough for us now. I'm in my 40s and I didn't have any of the distractions or any of the, well, to the level that the kids have now. And you just think it's almost a bit of an uphill battle for all of them in some way. And anything we can do to give them the toolkit to allow them to, yeah, navigate the challenges of life.
Yeah. And I think, well, you noticed when you observed about your young, is she 4 years old?
Yeah.
Um, at that age as well, like children will just they're not self-conscious, are they? So if she wants to like shake a body, she'd shake a body. If she wants to scream, cry, let any emotions out, she'll just do it. Whereas I think same with animals, that animals are just like if they're running from a tiger and then they shake, it's they do a lot of shaking to like release stress. But I think as we get older, we're kind of conditioned, like you can't just suddenly start shaking in the, in the office because you feel a bit stressed. It looks a bit odd. And so we've suppressed those kind of natural ways of releasing anything that happens to us. Whereas when they're young like that, they're still quite happy to kind of, they're not kind of hindered by, oh, this isn't acceptable to do this in the supermarket, that kind of feeling.
Yeah.
And so, like, I'm not saying we should maybe encourage them to do that, but like letting them feel their emotions is like a really great thing. I think my generation, I'm also in my 40s, and our generation was very much, suppress things, oh, you can't be sad or you can't cry or don't cry, and we used to be told that as children. Whereas no, sometimes you need to cry. Like it's a cortisol, it's a release of, it's a really good thing to, if you need to cry, you need to let it out. And I think for me, I feel like if we could encourage children to be a bit more like, yeah, let's sit with the emotions, and you're allowed to have those emotions. You're allowed to have anger, sadness. Whereas I feel like I was very, as a child, that wasn't really a good thing to have. And so we suppress things. And I think that's why over time we like hold a lot of stuff in our body. I know for me with my burnout, looking back, I'd been an anxious person like all of my life and I'd never really addressed it. And I think the burnout gave me no choice, but I actually turned to EDMR therapy, which is a somatic therapy. So although it's a talking therapy, it's also a physical release therapy, and that really, really helped me. So yeah, so I think that would be really good for children is just yeah, letting them think that it's okay to feel your emotions and to let them out.
Yeah, 100%. And it's even it's almost especially there's a stereotype still around boys. It's like big, that oh, big boys don't cry. As soon as they get like 4, 5, 6, and it's even encouraging boys even more so to suppress it than young girls. But obviously, it all depends on the environment and family and stuff like that. But that's something I've spoken about in the past that we do need to be able to, because eventually, at some point, it's gonna manifest into something. It's gonna
Mm,
come out at some point in your life, whether it's in the teenage years, 20s, or yourself, like 30s, 40s, wherever. It's gonna come out. Like there's no putting the lid on it.
mm,
Or if you do, eventually, well, you know, the body keeps the score, doesn't it? So at some point, it's gonna let you know that something is seriously out of alignment, and
yeah.
you have to address this. But it's also beautiful as well, isn't it? Like, I don't know where you are, particularly in your journey, but you know, you can be grateful for your challenges, can't you? You can sit back and go, well, you know what? The lessons that I've learned, I'm growing from this. I'm learning more about myself. I'm learning more about everything. And it's a great learning curve. So often, I remember, and it's something I listened to recently, and he talked about saying, make your mess your mission. And in many ways, you're making your mess your mission because you're bringing Qigong to people or wherever it is. And eventually you'll help them to overcome their challenges. So I really loved hearing that, but it really stuck with me, make your mess your mission. And often people can be, I talk about this as well, people finding out, well, what people often think, well, what is my mission? Like, what is my path in this life? I don't know. And often it's some say, well, what is some of your greatest challenges? Not only what are your greatest passions, but what are your greatest challenges? And how can you, because that's what we learn the most from. And that's when we can pass on the wisdom to others.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, I'd say I hadn't been happy in my career for a long time, say from my mid 30s right through. I think when I burnt out, I was 42, 41. And I knew I hadn't been happy. And I had kept thinking to myself, you know what? I don't think I could do this till I'm 65, retirement age. I kept thinking, this fast-paced environment, I was really struggling with it, but I didn't see any other option. And then I feel like this burnout happened. And it gave me no choice. Like you say, the body was just like, nah, not doing this anymore. You can't carry on the way you are. It's taken me years to get to that point, though, years to go, actually, I'm going to turn this into something good and I'm going to try and help other people with it. I think at the time, you're really in the depths of it and you're just like, why is this happening to me? I can't believe this. I was so in denial about my burnout. I was just like, yeah, no, I'm better now after a month or two. And in reality, in my support group, she'd be saying, it takes a couple of years to really get. And I was like, no, I haven't got time. I haven't got a couple of years to sit around and get better. Like, I need to get back to work and life. And I think, yeah, it's been a huge journey over the 3 years. And I'd say it's only the last sort of 6 months to a year where I've actually feel like, I don't feel traumatized by my experience because it was a really traumatic experience for me. And I wanted to be in control, and my body kept telling me, no, you can't do this. So yeah, so it is. I am hoping that, by bringing Qigong to people, and I'm also really interested in doing work in like sort of the perimenopause sort of environment because definitely on reflection and I've done a lot of research around what happened, and I do think some of it was to do with the fact that I was going through perimenopause, my hormones were changing, and one of the first symptoms of perimenopause can be like you just can't deal with the stress that you used to be able to deal with. You just can't deal with the life that. And so I think that was a huge one for me. So I'm really trying to talk about on my socials about perimenopause as well and like the early symptoms that a lot of women don't realize and they don't know because I think everyone thinks in perimenopause or it's just about hot flushes and and it really isn't like you can start your hormones can really start shifting in late 30s and I really wish that I'd known that back then because I could have then gone, oh, actually, I can't maybe deal with all the stresses that I used to. But it's only been now, like I'm 45 now, that I've actually done all the research and gone back and go, oh, yeah, like now I can see this burnout happened because of this, there was lots of reasons. There's never one particular cat thing, but like, yeah, perimenopause again was another thing. So I'm actually doing some work now around perimenopause. So bringing Qigong into how it can help you at this time of life as well as bringing it to everybody. But, like really trying to talk about this, have this conversation, yeah, and around burnout as well, chronic fatigue. A lot of people suffer with that. And so how Qigong can really help with chronic fatigue. So, yeah, so I am really passionate about bringing Qigong to people. So we just need to get the word out really so people know what it is.
Well, hopefully for this podcast and many other people are doing great work. You mentioned about John Munro, who's your teacher, and
Mm.
then there's Lee Holden. There's plenty of other people online with a big following that have been doing this for a number of decades,
Yeah.
that are doing their best to get the word out. Just interesting what and you said something there I want to pick up on. We and what you've done yourself is it's often you can do these practices like Qigong amazing, but as well and that we also have to look at our life, don't we? Like the environment, like the work, where we're living, the stresses. We can't just be like, okay, do the practice, and then it might be in that okay, depends what your condition is and how you're feeling. But generally, when you start to go down this path, other areas in your life have to change as well. You have to change your environment as well, and naturally they just go hand in hand. It almost like the environment has to change because you're changing.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, before I burnt out, so I thought I was connected to my body. Like I've always practiced yoga, like I've always been to the gym, I've always been in that space. So I thought, I'm connected to my body. I understand what's going on. But prior to my burnout, looking back now, I'd be going to a yoga class, I'd be running from a meeting at work, run to the yoga class, do the practice, and then it would be great. And then I'd run off again. And before you know it, I'd be on my emails. And so I wasn't really connecting to my body. I wasn't changing that kind of life. I wasn't going home and just having a relaxed evening. So it was like, I think we can be in this danger of, oh, it's all right because I've been to a yoga class, so surely I'm, calm now. But then if we carry on again, we come out of that class and we're just like, yeah, back to life again, back to all the stresses. It's not really doing us any favors. So it's hard though, isn't it, in life? Because we all have to earn money to pay our bills. We aren't can't all just leave our jobs and stuff. So it is really about finding that balance, I think. Like, and that's the one thing for me is I'm really trying to bring Qigong into a space where it's kind of like it relates to like modern life. And, it would be great if we could all just practice Qigong every day outside and, not have to have a stressful job, but that's not the reality, is it? A lot of
No,
the time.
it's not reality. When you say that, I imagine sort of, people in really high pressure jobs who might be like, brain surgeons or wherever people like the way they work and the hours that they have to do need it as well. We all need to find out things. Do you know what? I think it's been really good this conversation, and I'm really fascinated by it all. And just like I said, the benefits I've seen in myself is just like, right, need to get someone on my podcast to talk about it so we can share more about it. How can if people want to, before we find out a little bit more about, you know, how people can find out about you and your work, but what if someone wants to kind of just deepen their own understanding of Qigong? Like, where could they go? You know, resources, people that you might recommend. Is there any books? Just so people can sort of turn themselves towards that.
Yeah, so my teacher, John Monroe from Long White Cloud Qigong, he has lots of stuff on his YouTube channel, like lots of practices that you can go and do. He's really generous with his knowledge, lots of free classes. He does either lives or he has a couple of free courses on his website as well. So he has an introduction to Qigong course on there, which is free. Um, he has like an introduction to breathwork as well on there. So he's really good. Um, there's Lee Holden, which you've mentioned. He's over in the States. There's Nicole Lee as well. I think she's based in Australia. But again, they all do stuff online. The closest person actually, and this is how I started to practice Qigong, is Katie Brindle. So Katie Brindle is on Instagram. She's got a really big following. She is a Chinese medicine practitioner, and she also has a business called the Hey You Method. And she has a lot of like their tools, like she has the gua shas and the body brushes and stuff. And she actually has a platform of Qigong teachers. It's called Hey You Fit. And that is Qigong classes. So you can subscribe to it. So I think it's like £10 up to £25 a month, depending on the level you want to go to. And they have weekly practices, like daily practices that you can do. And they have like an online hub. So that is where I would start with, if or the a free course for John would be great to start. But yeah, I mean, in my long-term plan, I would love to have an online platform where I have my teachers and I teach people and like I have like a hub where people can go to, but that's a bit of a way off yet for me. So yeah, so Katie Brindle's online hub would be really great as well.
That's good to really good. I'll be checking those out myself. Hopefully, many
Yeah.
people will. So, and also, if one of people find out more about yourself, how could they potentially? I know you're Manchester based in the
Yeah,
UK.
yeah, yeah. So I'm in Manchester. So I teach online bi-weekly. So on Saturday mornings, I do like a 45-minute energy practice. Yeah, from 9:30 to 10:15. So you can book online through my Instagram link. I'm still working on a website, so I haven't got a website up and running yet, but I do that. I teach at a yoga studio over in Macclesfield. I've got a class on there in a couple of weeks' time. It's a free class actually, so I will let you have the link if people want to book onto that, if they're in sort of South Manchester area. I have a workshop, I have a couple of workshops coming up as well. So I'm teaming up with a few other wellness facilitators. So Ariane, who is a yoga therapist, we and her have been friends for a long, long time. I actually had yoga therapy with her when I burnt out, but me and her are joining together and we're doing an afternoon workshop around perimenopause. So we're going to be using our movement practices. She's really good at like helping people with sleep as well. So we're doing a whole afternoon in April, which we've got, which I can send you the link to. So yeah, anyone who's feeling like they want a bit of support with that. And yeah, and then I've got another workshop coming up with another uh, Chinese medicine practitioner. She's an acupuncturist and she does yin yoga. So we and her are teaming up together and we're going to do an afternoon with Qigong, talk about acupuncture and like the pressure points, that you can use on yourself to sort of support yourself and then do some yin yoga. Um, so yeah, I'm also teaching at a festival this year. I'm teaching at Lost Village Festival in the wellness tent there. So if anyone's going to Lost Village, it'd be great if they wanted to book onto that. So I'm kind of just in my first year of business. I'm getting things moving, and yeah, I will be teaching regular classes. And like I said, at the minute I'm doing bi-weekly online if people aren't in Manchester.
That sounds really exciting. It's amazing to hear all the
Yeah.
things that you're doing. I'd imagine as well doing it as sort of a workshop, facilitating it and collaborating with other people, just adds a whole new dimension to it, and particularly for the people coming to it as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think to get people sort of exposed to Qigong, it's really great to collaborate with other people. I'm also going to collaborate with a breathwork practitioner. So she really focuses on chronic fatigue. She helps people with chronic fatigue. So we're going to do something for people with chronic fatigue with breathwork and Qigong. So yeah, I think it's really good as a practitioner to join up with other people because sometimes it's nice to just practice Qigong, but like it's great to bring all these there's so much now, isn't there? There's like breath work, yoga, lots of somatic work. So it's good to come together, I think, and sort of create something together. And yeah, and it's more interesting to work together.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Lou, it's been really nice speaking to you. I've really enjoyed this chat. I'm looking forward to sharing it. Um, and I'll be sure to include all the links we spoke about, not just about what you're talking about, the stuff like the Lost Village Festival and the other classes you got, but also the people you mentioned, like John
Yeah,
Monroe and Katie Brindle and stuff like that, so people can find out more about. But yeah, I really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much, Lou.
that's great. Thank you for having me.